Thank you very much, Ashita. I'm extremely happy to be here today in launching the first of its kind event in our very own city, Bengaluru. And I would like to welcome all the judges on the panel and, of course, the participants without whom this event would not have taken off at all. So thank you very much for being with us. And without wasting much time, let's get into the topic, the core of this event itself. But before going in, I would like to kind of introduce about the institution that I represent. I represent Center for Study of Science, Technology and Policy, which is a leading think tank based out of Bengaluru. We are more than a decade-old organization working in areas of energy, power, and right now on adaptation, risk planning, and other aspects. And definitely artificial intelligence is also one of the areas that we work in. So given that, our areas of interest is about, energy planning and, power and adaptation, climate change is definitely one of the very core areas of our work. So in this space, we were also interested in looking into waste, although as of now, we haven't really gone deep into it, but this is kind of the beginning of getting into that. Looking at waste from a climate change perspective is something that we are intending to do as we go along. So now let's get into the panel discussion itself. Before moving in there, I would just take a minute to kind of introduce the topic, introduce the esteemed panelist, of course, and then we will go around discussing the issue and all its varied dimensions and facets of the problem or the challenge of waste management. If one of humankind's desires has been to put its stamp on the world, waste is the most compelling and universal way in which it has accomplished its mission. Waste is a global challenge that demands local solutions. India produces 277 million tons of solid waste every year, and it is likely to touch 387 million tons in 2030. And 2030 is not very far away, just a decade away for us. On a daily basis, we produce more than 1.5 lakh metric tons of solid waste. Of this, only 77% of the waste is disposed. I'm sorry, not only 77% of the waste is actually disposed in open dumps, and only 5% is recycled, and 18% is composted. Now, with increasing urbanization and rising levels of consumption, our piles of waste are just going to grow. So managing waste properly is essential for building sustainable and livable cities, but it does remain a challenge. Are our cities and governments equipped enough to do so? To discuss these issues and more, I'm joined by an eminent panel at this launch event of the ClimateCon. First, I would like to go around introducing my co-panelists, Professor Naveen. He is head of the Department of Civil Engineering at Amity University. He has 14 years of diverse experience in the field of geotechnical engineering, geo-environmental engineering, and waste management. He is a recipient of many awards, including the Aqua Foundation's Academic Excellence Award for Solid Waste Management in 2016 and the Sir M. Vishwesvaraya Award for 2020. Professor Naveen did his PhD and postdoc from Indian Institute of Science, a premier research institute based out of Bengaluru, which people who are assembled here are definitely aware of. Next, I would like to introduce Ms. Divya, who is the program manager at Raspberry Pi Foundation India, and she's responsible for growing the reach of the foundation's work in India. Divya holds an MSc degree from the University of Oxford in Learning and Technology, and is passionate about education. Divya has extensive understanding of the education system in India and has been involved in several projects across various non-profits in India. Divya also has experience working with large information technology firms like IBM and Infosys. Welcome, Divya, and welcome, Dr. Naveen. Moving on, I would like to introduce Pooja Channavirappa. So Ms. Pooja is a senior fellow of the Melton Foundation, having graduated from BMSIT in 2014. By training, she's a mechanical engineer who further educated in design thinking and systemic designs. And professionally, she's a design engineer and a co-founder of Young Engineering Innovation Agency, which focuses on circular innovation, which is similar to the circular economy. Now, they base their work in the organization that she's attached to now. They base their work on human-centered design and the concepts of systems and futures thinking. She, along with the co-founders, has developed a sustainable coffee machine in the past few years. So, and their vision is to transform existing commercial world into something sustainable and circular, right? So these are the kind of backgrounds and skill sets that my esteemed panel is bringing along for discussion here today. So now we will move into the formal panel session. So to begin with, I would like to kind of, it's interesting because culturally we Indians are frugal and recycling is a way of life. There is not a single home where you have one plastic bag filled with multiple plastic bags, which is kind of sitting there for reuse, or, you know, electronic goods that are stashed somewhere away, which nobody looks at, but it's still there. So, I mean, we've had this culturally, we've been, you know, our psyche has been of recycling and doing things. So what went wrong? Where did it all change? Right? So given that, you know, it's time that we kind of look into these questions and then try and see what we may have to do. So first and foremost, I would like to call upon Dr. Naveen, who's going to throw a very different perspective on the waste issue itself. We all talk about waste as being an issue. We are talking of it as something that needs to be solved, yes. But then Naveen is going to bring in the perspective of how do you solve it? And there are multiple ways where you can actually utilize it for well-being of the society and through engineering, ways. So, Dr. Naveen, my first question is towards you. Can you throw some light on how waste in the perspective of engineering properties is viewed in your opinion? Over to Dr. Naveen.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Indu, and thank you, Arshit, and also I thank all panelists. First of all, I want to highlight waste is not a waste. Just only we have to change our thinking. What Dr. Indu was telling today, I am going to just highlight the main thing. Every newspaper you can see the waste, what we are highlighting is a segregation or disposing of waste. But the major concern why the waste problem arises in India or abroad is we have not segregated the waste and we have dumped directly on the soil. As you know that when water enter into waste, it will change its property and the degradation will take place, and end of the result it will go to the soil and soil will lose its bearing capacity. So as a geotechnical engineering and geotechnical expert, it's my concern, because we have a huge population and scarcity of land, my concern is how to reuse this waste and how to check the engineering property. So I have taken the case study of Mahabalipura, because the capacity was of landfill is only 600 metric tons, but BBMP used to send 1000 metric tons, and there was a lack of segregation. Just they were dumping the waste on the landfill without doing proper covering, and when rainwater comes, just it is entering into the landfill. So there it start contaminating the soil as well as water body. In my research, I completely clear out from 30 meters away also the source water like a pond and as well as river. There also it is a contaminated, because with respect to time it will be degradation will be going, and also it will be percolating in the vertical direction or horizontal direction, it will be seeping out. So in case if you want to construct any foundation on this type of soil, because of this mismanagement of waste, the bearing capacity of soil is weak. So what is the solution is we have to go for the ground improvement technique like a pile foundation or whatever. Before that, the main thing is we have to segregate the waste, and also whatever the accumulated waste, like a best example is Ghaziapur landfill, Mahabalipura, we have a big heap also. How to give the proper solution? So as the geotechnical engineering, we have conducted extensively work on geotechnical aspect. Then we have come out with that in the waste have a good engineering property compared to soft soil. So if I want to tell the values, the waste having, because in Bangalore or if in Indian waste we have a more water content, that's why the moisture content when I calculated it is coming to 30% to 80%, but in soft soil the moisture is 36% only, and density of waste is very less than 9 water, but in soil it will be 17.5, it will go. So also end of the day, when you want to construct a foundation, you need a safe bearing capacity. When I calculated the waste having a 0.8 kg per centimeter square, but when I compare with the soft soil, it is 0.5. It clearly shows that waste have a good engineering property. The main thing drawback, because of the water content present in the waste, that's why different type of bacteria are coming with different type of time, and the nuisance is creating like a odor, everything. Because when moisture content is more, because bacteria will come, odor will come, people never used to come. When you remove the water content from the waste, definitely it will behave like a sand particle. In my research we have proved that. So that's why in the best example is also we are constructing this material for the road construction for the embankment purpose, and also the plastic waste we have used for the airport, for the terminal too. So the only thing is we have to change our perspective that waste is not a waste, it can be used in any way. So in a civil engineering aspect also. By telling this, I will conclude my session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Naveen, for giving, a perspective which is, very different from what people generally think. The minute we say waste, it's not just clutter on the land area. It's a lot of clutter in our minds also, because, the way we handle waste itself is kind of, it's a very mixed thing. Before we move ahead, I'm happy to let you all know that we have Dr. Meenakshi Bharat, who has joined us on the panel. She just got a little caught up and she joined in a little while ago. So Dr. Meenakshi, of course, it's our honor to be having her here, because Dr. Meenakshi Bharat is a gynecologist by profession. However, she's representing here on this forum from the Solid Waste Management Roundtable, which is popularly known as SWMRT, which is a public interest collective of solid waste management practitioners who are working for adoption of sustainable waste management in the city of Bangalore, by promoting this among citizens and municipalities for improving public health, safe food, clean air, so on and so forth. Now, Meenakshi, of course, was responsible for setting up composting in the BBMP head office. She is one of the persons who actually initiated the Zero Waste Initiative in Dollar Colony. This was steered by her. And she's also part of the campaign on healthy and sustainable menstruation, Green the Red. So we're very happy to have you, Dr. Meenakshi, on the panel. So now over to you. Very nice. Welcome aboard. And my question to you, Dr. Meenakshi, is we know the issue of waste with its multifaceted, nature. There are a whole lot of issues and challenges related to this. I would like to call upon you to throw some light in this direction, working with SWMRT. What are the big challenges? What are the key issues that still remain to be tackled in this arena of waste management? You're muted, Dr. Meenakshi. Kindly unmute yourself.
Sorry. Our focus is on how can we reduce the amount of waste that we are producing. There is some waste that compulsorily has to come, and that is the food waste. There may be some debris waste like Naveen was talking about, but our concentration is on municipal solid waste and how can we reduce the amount of municipal solid waste. So basically, give up using single-use disposables. Whatever the single-use disposables, give it up, because India was completely sustainable till we took up single-use disposables. So the single-use disposables can be the paper cup, the plastic spoon, the plastic straw, the plastic bag, everything. So if we go back to reusables, then we will find that we produce less garbage. And if you get off this plastic packaging, which is a huge problem. So we used to get bottled milk, and there used to be a malai portion on top of it, and we used to love that malai. Where did that malai go? It's gone. You know, the Bombay milk used to come like that. Bangalore milk also used to come like that. So somewhere we have lost out a lot of good things by getting used to this single-use disposables. Now, being a woman, a gynecologist, and a garbage evangelist, my focus is on women and women's health. And in this, I'm looking at 100,000 kgs of sanitary waste that comes into Bangalore every day and goes to the landfill. Now, I am saying that women have a wonderful, comfortable option as against the disposable sanitary napkins. Disposable sanitary napkins, over the last 60 years, everybody has said, wow, it's the most wonderful thing. It's only taken us this long to realize that it's not wonderful, and that it is 95% plastic, something stated by National Geographic, and a huge health hazard. And along with that, discomfort. So we have a rash, we have itching, we have allergy, we have urinary tract infection, we have hormonal imbalance, all sorts of things we have, which we have tolerated because we think that there is no other option. And we didn't want to go back to cloth pads, because cloth pads, my mother and my grandmother used to leak, and our clothes used to get soiled, and nobody wants to show that they are bleeding. I would actually think that we should be so happy to show everybody, man, I am bleeding and I am getting my periods, and therefore I am healthy. But that concept is not there, because everybody hides their head in shame and says, oh no, I cannot talk about my periods. So we want people to shout about their periods, and people not to whisper about their periods. So remove whisper disposable sanitary napkins from our gamut of things that we use. And then there are two lovely things that are available for us. There is the cloth pad has come back in a new avatar. This has a leak proof material at the back and the cloth in front. And so when you wear this, the leak proof material doesn't allow the stain to go onto the clothes that you're wearing. And this is for the young adolescent girl who, still doesn't know her body well enough. But for those who are 18 plus, this is the menstrual cup, and it's the most wonderful thing. If all of us are going Googa over our smartphones, well, this is the smart product for menstruation. And from 18 to 50, women can use it for a 32 years and have freedom from periods. I had to wait for menopause to come to have freedom from periods. But for all of you who are fortunate to still menstruate, remember, I'm saying fortunate to menstruate. You are fortunate to menstruate, and you have this wonderful device. That is the best thing. 15 grams of medical grade silicone can carry you through for 10 years. Imagine, that's all the trash that you will create. And the comfort is so much. It's an intravaginal device like the tampon, but unlike the tampon, it doesn't absorb blood. It just collects blood. And it collects 3 times the quantity of blood that the tampon or the disposable sanitary napkin or the cloth napkin collects. So this holds 15 to 23 ml. So you don't have to change as often as you would change the disposable sanitary napkin. And you can use it for 8-10 hours without worrying about leakage. 95 to 99% of the time, it will not leak. So there is no leakage. There is nothing between your legs. So there is no rash, and definitely no trash. And if there is, it's good for the environment and good for the health. It's definitely good for your pocket. 1 cup of 900 rupees will last you 10 years, which means 90 rupees a year. That is the amount that you will spend every month on your disposable sanitary napkins. So you save 90% of your money, you save 99.9% of the trash, and you have such a happy period. So really, that is what I recommend as a gynecologist. I want women's health and I want no trash. And then it's money saved in your pocket. So then you can go and buy something useful. But I would say, please buy yourself lots of fruits and vegetables and eat it. And so there'll be no more trash produced that can be composted. So that is my entry to everybody here. Let's have comfortable periods. Let's create no trash, because every woman creates 35 kgs of trash in 10 years. And this is 15 grams of trash. There's no comparison between 35 kgs and 15 grams of trash. So no trash, no rash, and no cash. That is the menstrual cup or the cloth pad.
Thank you, Dr. Meenakshi. Thank you so much on
And Naveen, please take it forward to everybody.
Definitely. Thank you very much for actually kind of linking women health and waste generation. People don't see the connect. I mean, just for information, the plastic that's produced today, if you know, you should be knowing this. You should know. Everyone should remember that it'll remain even in 2506, right?
Correct.
2506.
Absolutely.
That's the lifetime of plastics. So if we can cut down on this trash that we produce as responsible citizens and as women who are, we are responsible for a whole lot of things in our home space and outside as well. So let's take this forward. We really need to. And more importantly, if you remember, Dr. Naveen did speak about the landfill space, this shortage of land. Do you even know that, each year for the waste that we dump, the landfill area required is 1,240 hectares. If we continue in the same way, by 2030, the area that's required would be 66,000 hectares, a little less than the area of Bangalore. So that's the kind of area we're looking at when you're dumping waste. So just to put things in perspective, remember that, every piece of land, and it doesn't end there. Naveen spoke about the leachates. It just gets thrown here and there, but then the stench, the soil and water contamination, these impact the health of people. These impact the health of animals. I mean, you've seen videos and pictures of, cows eating plastics, their stomachs open, and then you see it's all crumpled up plastic that comes out of it. Now, more importantly, one more angle to this is these landfills also emit high amounts of methane and carbon dioxide. Now, these are two dominant greenhouse gases causing climate change. So now climate change, as you all know, is a huge issue that the entire world is tackling. Now, you don't want to add more to this issue, right? So we really need to think of this as a process which is going to help us redefine the way we live, give us more healthy environments, cleaner air to breathe, because if these pollutants get released into the atmosphere, it's also polluting the air, right? Think about people who live close to these areas. So there are a whole lot of issues that need to environmental, health issues, and a range of things that need to be addressed here. So let's just take it upon ourselves to do our bit, right? So that's very important. Now, moving on.
Air has got no partiality. Air doesn't know rich, poor. Water doesn't know rich, poor. So when we contaminate when we dump, like Naveen said, mixed waste goes to the dump yard, everybody gets affected.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah. So given this, I mean, all of this finally, it all revolves around, sustainability at the end of the day. What are we doing to the environment? The sustainable styles of living that we have, are there ways to make this? Yes, there are. But then we really need to kind of redefine the way we look at waste, redefine the way we think, redefine the way we handle everything. So now I would request Pooja from the panel to, give her thoughts on influences of design thinking on sustainability itself. How do you get this thinking into the space of waste management itself, or handling waste? So over to you, Pooja.
Thank you, Indu. It works out perfectly because design thinking can tie into what Dr. Meenakshi and Dr. Naveen were talking about. So there are three main topics, concepts that I would like to focus on. Design thinking is at its heart about human-centric design. So the user is important. And we're not talking about what the user wants, you know, that famous quote from Henry Ford, if you ask people, they want faster horses. It's really looking at the needs and the behaviors of the users. So IDEO, the design agency creating positive impact, defines it as if you cannot understand the need of the user, then you should not be designing anything. Because as we know, industrial design is one of the biggest contributors to landfills, to waste. And with design thinking, you're already setting up the first barrier of saying, if I'm going to understand the user completely. Maybe for an example, think about all the different kitchen equipments that we have. We have a potato slicer, we have a cucumber slicer, a carrot slicer, and they're all different products. Was that necessary? Maybe not. But this comes from understanding the user needs on a very superficial level, where somebody in the market says, I want to be able to cut my carrots faster and my onions without any tears. So you develop separate products addressing each one of these. And that's design thinking avoids doing that. It tries to make sure that you're looking at the whole picture of the user and seeing where exactly the solution is necessary. So less is more in this case. As Dr. Naveen was pointing out with the landfill in Mavalipuram, what they wanted to do was to create the space where garbage is collected. But they ignored the fact that the user behavior was going to generate a lot more waste. So there you could have tweaked the solution a little bit more, maybe also created a solution that's not just creating a dump yard, but actually reducing the generation of waste. Moving on to the second point, design thinking is about complexity. It really focuses on the problem as much as the solution, or even more than the solution itself. So design thinking does not shy away from difficult questions. How do we make sure that women have the comfort and the ease during their menstruation, but still make sure that the products or the hygiene products are not contributing to the waste? And that's something that I would encourage all of our participants to look at in terms of complexity and how do we manage different equal issues in the user's world now. And the third one is diversity. What do I mean by diversity? Design thinking says that don't just sit at your desk, don't just think about the newest technology, the best new idea, the best new invention that you can create. Involve multiple groups of the community, involve the people who are going to use your solution, involve the people who are going to be processing the waste after the product that you develop is used, or somebody who is making the resources, the raw materials that goes into the creation of a product, or the raw data that goes into a service. Involve everyone in creating the solution together. How do you do this in the design thinking process? You use a lot of testing. You create a prototype, you test with your users, you test with all the other stakeholders, and you're getting comprehensive feedback on what works and doesn't work. And the best example would be in terms of obsolescence. Most of our electronic devices are designed for obsolescence right now, which was a great idea for the market. It was also a great idea for us engineers who could just keep pushing the newest technology to the customers. And of course, they're going to enjoy it. But we did not think about all the other little things that is attached. If I buy a new phone, do I also have to buy a new charger? Yes. Why can't I just use the old battery and the old charger? Why couldn't I have kept something? What happens to the phone afterwards? I, as an engineer who's excited about technology, didn't care about it. We're like, it goes, recycling. Well, not really. I mean, only 30% of the 60 million tons of electronic waste that we generate is actually recycled. The rest is landfill. So thinking about the complexity there becomes important. So those are the three topics. That said, I have to mention design thinking is not the solution for all of our sustainability related issues right now, but it is definitely a springboard in order to create a more ethical, more thoughtful solutions.
Thank you, Pooja. Thank you so much. I'm sure the participants have kind of they must have had their brain cells already ticking away with the kind of suggestions that you gave for their putting together their innovative solutions for this climathon. So thank you for that wonderful intervention. And so now, yes, design thinking, as she rightly said, is a way forward, but it's not an end in itself. So all you need to kind of think, that there were times when people used to talk about, cradle to grave, look at the life cycle and then try and put together things. But then now you need to look at, what happens after it ends, after it hits the grave. What do you do with it? So that's the question that I think is very crucial at this point in time. You can't just think about innovating something, let it do its job, and then just it's lying around somewhere. But if it's lying around somewhere, it's waste. So what do you do with it? Can you recycle? Can you recover something from it? Or can you keep it for a longer period of time rather than, trying to get new things here and now? So that's the question. That's the thinking that also needs to change within each one of us who are here. So let's think and hope that we can bring about that change as we go along. But then now, more importantly, yes, you need to do this changes in the thinking. You need to look at technology. You need to think about ways to solve this issue end to end and beyond, so to say. But the question is, what is the scope? I mean, everybody needs to be involved, but then more so, I come from a space where I've always felt that, the youth and the school children are, people who definitely have great ideas, and then involving them at every point in time. There's a whole lot of energy that comes in with that. And I worked with Indian Institute of Science for about 2 decades before I joined C-STEP. So I used to do these, what we call as the citizen science programs, where people actually come and do, they measure trees for their carbon content. Yeah, so I mean, people would get so excited, but then it's also a way to build awareness and also build an understanding of the connect between nature and human beings. Because a tree is not just a tree, it's home to a bird, it's home to something else. The ecosystem services is something that we really need to keep in mind whenever we kind of do any solution. So keep in mind, whatever you're trying to build, that, it's not just about humans. There is life beyond human beings. So that's something we really need to be very clear about. So now I would like to request Vidya to throw some light and her insights on what is the scope for youth engagement in social innovation and role of technology. So over to you, Vidya.
Thank you, Indu. Divya. It's very easy to confuse Divya with Vidya. My old name used to be Vidya. Yeah. Thank you. I think it was so fascinating to hear from all of you, like such different fields, but so many like common themes and everything. Wonderful to hear from Dr. Naveen and all of the science that goes behind like waste management. And of course, Dr. Meenakshi, I would also like to share that I did use the cup for a while. Sadly, I left it, but maybe design thinking can solve that problem. Like why did I leave it? I used it for a good 3 or 4 months and then it just kind of went off, right? But yeah, I do agree that it was one thing that, like I saved up so much cash on simply because I was reusing it every single month. So such varying perspectives. So just to give you a little bit of introduction about myself, I work for the Raspberry Pi Foundation. We are a UK-based nonprofit and we create something called the Raspberry Pi computer. I do have a small model here. I think there might be a lot of people here who kind of already know about it. So the Raspberry Pi computer is a small credit card size computer. I work for the foundation. So the foundation, like I mentioned, it's a non-profit. What we essentially do is we work to run large-scale programs to get more children and young people interested in coding and computing. it might seem unconnected to what we're talking about today, but actually it's very, very connected, because we take the whole idea of getting young people empowered and aware about environment issues very, very seriously. So we've actually created lots of coding projects that children can actually try using Scratch and HTML and some very basic programming languages, and really think about, like all of the environmental challenges that they're facing. And our intention is that hopefully through our projects, children can really understand something like what's happening in this panel, right? Like there's so many different ways of looking at waste. There's so many solutions out there, and to really explore these solutions through coding as well. A really interesting thing is that we have an competition that we actually run every single year. It's called Coolest Projects, and as the name suggests, is basically all of the coolest projects from all over the world get to come and present. So this year, because of COVID, obviously we had to do it online. And what that did is that it actually enabled a lot more children to actually participate. And there were a lot of participants from India as well. And surprisingly, a lot of the students from India actually submitted projects on different programming languages around the theme of garbage and waste management, and how they want to see their country being clean, and air being clean and water being clean. So there are a lot of really young children who are actually thinking about these concepts and really thinking about presenting that through the use of technology. So every generation, I think, becomes more and more important when trying to solve this problem. And hopefully through technology or through coding and computing, we can also equip the future generation to really think critically about this problem, and in some ways not contribute to the creation of more waste. As and when they get more and more aware, hopefully they will not be generating that much more waste. So yeah, so I think those are my basic inputs on how we can kind of engage with youth. Technology is one way, but there's so many other ways, and I'm happy to see that there's so many young people who have actually joined the Climathon today, and I look forward to actually seeing all of their projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Divya, right? Thank you so much. So I see that's the thinking here. Everybody has something to contribute. I think we should be open to ideas. So this is also a clue to the teams that are going to be congregating and coming up with solutions. So we would definitely suggest that be open to all the ideas, think from different perspectives, bring in that thinking into the innovation that you're trying to build, right? So it might seem very simple, but then the simplest ones are the best solutions many a time. So keep your perspective very clear as to what you're trying to build, but at the same time, be open to what we are trying to build here. So now I think, of course, we have another 2 minutes. If Dr. Meenakshi could add something on the policies, the government policies, and the way things are moving in the city of Bengaluru, that would be a wonderful addition to what we spoke just now, so that it kind of gives an entire picture on how things are operating in the space of waste. Thank you.
There is fair amount of thinking in the policy where they are seriously looking at segregation at source. They are looking at localized composting. There is dry waste collection centers in every ward, so that the waste doesn't travel 40 kilometers unnecessarily where we're burning up fuel. So they are looking at collecting dry waste once a week, while collecting wet waste every day. And of course, they are hoping to incentivize people to compost in their own homes. So composting is not such a big problem. It's like cooking. If you can cook, you can compost. So it's as simple as that. So the government is beginning to, after 10 years of hammering away, the government is actually seeing sense at decentralized waste management instead of a centralized waste management, instead of waste to energy plants. all that is, and landfilling, all that is a complete waste of good money and land and economy and everything else. So it's happening, maybe not at the pace that you and I want, but it's beginning to happen, and that's the nice part of it. So HSR layout has set up a lovely Kalika Kendra, a teaching center for composting. And you must actually go and see that Kalika Kendra. In a 2-acre piece of land, they have every solution for composting. And what can you do with the compost? Grow so much vegetables. So if you want health, it's all there. It's called a green spot. So HSR Kalika Kendra. And there are lots of wards that are beginning to do decentralized. But basically, if we do not segregate our waste at home, then we are part of the problem and not part of the solution.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Meenakshi. Thank you for bringing in the perspective of, what's happening in the space of, because, the simplest thing for many of us is that, we blame the government. Government is doing
Correct.
nothing. We pay taxes. The government has to do its bit. It's not in our hands to do anything. But I guess we really need to kind of start coming out of that mindset and then saying that, we need to do our bit. That's when, you can push for other things. And the governments are, come on, people who are close to the landfills, they're not going to be quiet anymore. They've had their bit of issues and nobody is going to have, would you and I allow people to come and dump waste in front of our homes? No.
Absolutely.
So given that, I guess we should start thinking ahead and then try and planning and then work hand in hand with the government. Being antagonistic is the simplest way. The blame game continues forever. But who is going to be impacted? It's us as well, right? So given that, I think we should kind of push for this and then try and come up with solutions, which, it should kind of not be just a stopgap arrangement, something that's long-term, something that's sustainable, something that will stand the test of time. So I think that's the biggest challenge that we have in many different arenas, but definitely in the spaces of in the waste management space, undoubtedly, right? So now I think let's move on to the Q&A session. I'll just try, and I'm getting some questions on the from the YouTube session. People are sending me. Let me just run through it. Give me just one moment so that we can start talking about any questions that people have with respect to what we discussed. So yes, what we have here is, okay. Right, there is one participant who would like to know that design thinking is a well laid out process. So I guess it's directed to you, Pooja, and of course Divya could add it if she wants. Design thinking is a well laid out process, a bunch of tasks to be crossed out before coming up with a solution. So do you think this could affect the timeline of the idea making process?
I'm guessing this is in the scope of the Climaton. I would say that design thinking, yes, it is a very structured process, but it's also a mindset. So I would recommend that you use the mindset to really empathize with the user, look at the problem, understand the complexity of the problem, and move on. And also the idea making and the prototyping of the idea itself should be a small section of your time, because that's where creativity is best.
Thank you. So, Dr. Meenakshi, your talk on, the menstrual cups and hygiene, we have a couple of questions around it for sure. But I guess, given that the focus is more here about the waste generation and also the sustainability of use, etc., and we've brought in the design thinking here. So now, so a few of the participants, or one of them has this question as to, yes, it's a great idea, but then related to that, where you need clean water is their thinking. So again, here again, it's about, how do you kind of think through the idea here? So they want to know, okay, is the kind of the body structure of the woman kept in mind when these are developed? I know it is, yes. Secondly, they also kind of, have these questions on the flows varied for different women. So is there one size fit all or varied thing, which I guess, there are a whole lot of thinking that's gone in there, and you would be able to throw light on. But then more so, I think the thing to be kept in mind here, which Dr. Meenakshi has already very nicely pointed out, is that think of it from the perspective of the waste generation as well. You need to come up with eco-friendly solutions. You need to come up with innovative solutions which are sustainable, which people accept it as well, and then take it through. So, Dr. Meenakshi, if you had anything to add on this, please do.
So the menstrual cup, like I said, holds between 5 and 20, 15 and 23 ml. So this has been, Pooja, this has been, design changed. The cups used to be V cup. Now the cup is a U cup. There used to be a stem. The stem has been removed. So they've made it idiot proof so that any woman can use it. Also, like I said, it holds 3 times the capacity of a normal disposable sanitary napkin or the cloth pad. So therefore, it's very good for the women. And the vagina is such a beautiful structure. It is flat when there is nothing inside it. When you put something inside it, then it will open up and produce a nice seal. So it's good for all women. We don't have to use big sizes. Remember, when a baby is born, the coconut-sized head comes out, but then the vagina doesn't remain coconut-sized. It becomes small again. And so this can fit. And, we just have to learn to use a new thing. It's taken us 20 years, and now everybody has a mobile phone, and now everybody has a smartphone. This is a smart thing. It will take us a while for it to penetrate across 1.9 billion women, but it will happen because the comfort overrides everything else. And with the comfort is the money saving and the garbage saving. So on all three counts, this is a great product. So all women, you need to use it, and you need to convert 100 more, minimum.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Miss out on
Now,
it.
a question to Dr. Naveen. As part of the Climathon, how can we design projects that can be ingrained into the education system in India? Any thoughts on that, Dr. Naveen?
Yes, ma'am. First of all, I want to tell to our youngsters who want to do their UG or PG or PhD students, the main thing, the education system in India, first of all, the clay soil, when we are taking for the construction, the cost is very high, sand or clay, anything. So for a road construction, anything. Suppose if you use this waste material, that's why I told you in my discussion also, the waste have a good engineering properties. It is having a good SPC also. If you try to incorporate as a one layer when you are constructing, it will increase the bearing capacity. And also the best example is, I told you, the plastic road also we can. So suppose if you are using a bitumen, the cost is very high, aggregate is high. When you mix this with a equal proportion, the cost of the project is less, and you can reduce the plastic waste. So we have to understand and try to incorporate these things in our even when you are constructing even a residential building, or when you are constructing roads. So we have to incorporate the waste materials whenever this we have to understand, and we have understood. Now it is the only thing is application part is the main thing. So if you are trying to use this part in a civil engineering structures, definitely the waste whatever we are facing from the 2-3 decades, it will be reduced, and it is also getting the revenue, and the project cost will also reduce, and also you can save the mother earth.
Thank you. Thank you, Naveen. Now, there's a question directed to Divya. What are the top aspects you look for in the Coolest Projects program? How can we design our solutions to be innovative? And more importantly, how can we scale our ideas beyond a hackathon or ideathon? Over to you, Divya.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So to give you more details about the coolest projects, like what we look for in coolest projects is basically creativity, to be honest, like how creative is the project. If it's a copy paste of an existing project, usually we we kind of eliminate it right then and there. But if it's an adapted project and some new ideas have come in, like you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time, right? So if it's an adapted project and you've kind of incorporated your own elements, that's great. A lot of times we have like a written format where the person has to kind of explain their idea. So how well have they explained their idea? How relevant is it to the current situation? So these are some of the things that we kind of look at. And to be honest, that kind of answers your next question as well, where you've talked about, okay, like how do we scale, right? I think when you're, if you can think a little bit about the scaling aspects of it while you're designing, um, you will be able to design a particular way. Like how much do you want to scale? Like how many people do you want to involve this particular project in? So think about those aspects when you're designing itself, when you've got your pen on your and your paper together. That's probably the best way of kind of thinking about an idea when you're doing it on pen and paper. Think about like, okay, like if you had to scale it, what are some of the aspects that you can think about? A lot of times using certain kinds of technology could be a solution to scaling, but not always. And that's something that you have to think about based on your solution, right? So yeah, so that would be kind of my 2 cents for how to scale your design.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Divya. There's a question around, some light on what is the government doing with respect to composting currently, and what can we do as individuals. I think we will kind of see. We don't have much time, so these are time tested. There is enough material out there for you to look up, and if you're here for the climathon, I'm sure you have your own set of ideas too, or we are looking for ideas from you. So we won't delve too much into it, but there's definitely one question which has been asked about smart cities. How would smart cities play a role in managing waste management? If the panel doesn't mind, I can take it myself. Yes.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. So because I mean, see, when you talk of a smart city, it's all about, again, it's to do with the how do you kind of use it, how sustainable you are. You need to look at all aspects in a city. So obviously, when you're building a smart city, when you're formulating, when you're conceiving a smart city, waste management is at the heart of it. Unless that's tackled, you can't really claim it to be a smart city at the end of the day. So yes, there are some model cities which are trying to do their bit around the space, and there are a whole lot of ideas that have gone into the smart cities program, which is being promoted by the central government. So I guess with this, we kind of come to the end of this panel discussion, and I'm sure everybody is excited to kind of get into their own teams and start discussing ideas. So I think I'll take this opportunity to kind of wrap this session up. We had very nice, very interesting thoughts on right from, how do you recover, reuse waste to begin with, moving on to, Dr. Meenakshi talking about waste in general, but specifically about, the kind of waste, the sanitary waste that is quite large, which people don't realize. And also related to that, the health aspects of it, a pocket friendly solution, but at the same time, which is environmental friendly also. And from a health point of view, nothing better than that is what she kind of spoke about, which is extremely great. And of course, Divya talked about, how do youth can play a role in that, and what are the kind of things that we look at when we are trying to look at any innovation, any idea that's coming from the teens. And in that space, Pooja very nicely described about how design thinking comes handy in trying to kind of look through a problem and then trying to come up with solutions. And then at the end of the day, you also need to kind of keep all things in perspective, be it climate change, be it soil contamination, or be it water pollution that's happening, or air pollution as a result of waste, or the land that it's taking up. So a whole lot of things need to be kept in mind. So obviously, if we have to realize the dream of Swachh Bharat, we'll have to solve the burning issue of waste. we cannot be buried in our own muck, right? So that's just not an option at all. So although it will be up to the governments to develop policies and structures to deal with the increasing waste at the national level or at the state level, I'm sure you would agree that individuals and communities can help to reduce production of waste. That's in our hands. So there are some things we all can do, things that all of us here, we see logos, we see it everywhere, but I definitely would like to take this opportunity to reiterate that, first and foremost, refuse what you don't need. That's the first thing that we will need to kind of keep in mind, not mindlessly shopping for things and hoarding things, which we may use just once or not use at all. Reduce what you do need. Yes, you can do with little. You don't need a scraper for everything. I mean, our grandmothers did not have these luxuries. Everything was with one single knife that everything happened. So there are possibilities to do it. It's not that people haven't done it and it's difficult. So reduce what you do need, reuse what you can't reduce, of course, and recycle what you cannot reuse, and finally recover what you cannot recycle. So with this, I would like to thank all my co-panelists for coming up with these beautiful thoughts and remarks, which have kind of enlightened, including me. All of us have gained insights into different aspects of waste management from each other. And I'm sure the participants and whoever's joined this panel discussion have enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed talking to you people. Thank you very much. And over to you, Ashi. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can't, add anything to what Indu has already said. I think on behalf of the Melton Foundation, and if I may say so, on behalf of C-STEP, the two organizations that have come together to put together this event, we could not have asked for a better start. I'm sure all our participants who are on the thread on YouTube Live have enjoyed the session, have got that, starting push and that inspiration to get together in your teams and form your teams and bring us those really innovative solutions that we're looking for. I want to wish all the participants best of luck. And with that, we come to the end of our panel discussion, Clean Up Bengaluru, which hopefully we can do sometime soon. So thank you so much to all our judges and panelists. We look forward to seeing you at the closing of or ceremony of the Climathon as well, the Climathon roundup session. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice meeting up with you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.